AskReddit. What's the story of your first I love you with your significant other? It actually happened a few nights ago. I was drifting in and out of sleep for at least an hour while we were in bed, and she turned toward me and whispered I love you in my ear, and I said it back, and that was that. Apparently she had been working up the nerve to say it for the whole hour I was sleeping, and it was quite the statement to wake up to, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. We then proceeded to have mushy relationships conversations late into the night, so I'm glad I had the nap beforehand. We were at a wedding reception, taking a break outside admiring the landscaped gardens with a pond complete with a small waterfall, and talking about how our relationship had blossomed over the past several months. I told her I loved her, at which point she nearly barfed into the pond. Turns out I was hugging her a bit too tight and the wedding cake wasn't settling well for her. That was 5 years ago, and we're engaged now. Every once in a while we will still jokingly respond TP each other's I love you by pretending to throw up. We were hugging. My stomach growled loudly. She stepped back a little, her arms still on my shoulders and mine on her waist. Your tummy must love me, she said with a smile. All of me loves you, I replied. That's oddly romantic. We went on a stargazing date. Very romantic. Lots of hugging, sharing of jackets, the whole shebang. At some point he turns to me, kisses me, pinches my earlobe, and says I love you. I don't think I've ever rolled my eyes harder. We both said I love you within the next hour. We were drunk and laying in bed. She said it, and I didn't hear her. I thought she said I like you, so I said I like you too. Then she started crying. I do love her though, and now I make sure I tell her that at every opportunity. Nearly fucked it up. Nice recovery. Oh man. We had been together for probably 5 months at the time. There was a moment when he was driving us home, his house, one evening, and we parked in the driveway, and he turned on the dome light. And I looked at him, and I had this overwhelming feeling, and I was about to say it. Apparently he could tell from the way I was looking at him, and he quickly just said don't. Talk about being crushed. A few days later we were going to bed, and it was really weighing on me. I started crying, and when he asked what was wrong I told him that I was hurt, and that it's hard loving somebody when they don't feel the same way about you. And he paused for a second and said, I do. I found out that he had been waiting until the next day when we were going hiking on his grandparents' land. There was this giant sandstone rock he went to when he was a kid, and he wanted to carve our initials in it and tell me there. And since then I have ruined every surprise he has ever tried to pull off. We've been together for 7 years now, and I still get that feeling when I look at him. At the time we were just very close longtime friends. One day I was sick of pining in silence, so I told her, you know I'm as subtle as a chainsaw, so I'm just gonna say this straight up. I'm in love with you. She burst out crying and started hugging me, trying to choke out I've been trying to work up the guts to say that for months. In between sobs. It was wonderful. She said I love you, I said I know, and got a slap in the face. My BF tried to do that. Me, I love you. BF, I love you too. No wait, damn it, I didn't mean to say that. Me, so, you don't love me back. That's cool. BF, no, it's just that when you said it for the first time I wanted to be all cool like Han Solo and say, I know, but I ruined it. Me, laughing, you're kinda still ruining it, dummy. We then had a do-over where he got to do his Han impression. I said to my now wife I love you after only 2 weeks of dating. She, rightfully so, freaked out. I tried to backtrack. That made it more awkward. I then tried to just go to sleep in hopes of waking up not single. Tried again 8 months later, was successful. Wait longer than 2 weeks, people. My girlfriend and I were discussing via text what we should do on our date. She lists a couple of movies and ended the text with PS. I love you. We had never said I love you before, and I quickly replied back I love you too. I didn't know there was a movie called PS I love you. She informed me she was talking about the movie, but she really was falling in love with me as well. Married for 7 years now. We had broken up. He had said he wasn't that into me. 6 months later he rings me up, wants to have a beverage. We sit at the table, he stares around, makes small talk, We get our sodas. I finally ask what's up, angry because he ended the relationship and he looks so handsome. So I tell him to either speak his mind or I'll leave. He writes "I love you" on the table with the condensation from his soda. I fucking cried because I had been missing him terribly. We got back together and the relationship has been so smooth and beautiful for over 5 years. I was a little freaked out by how crazy I was about this guy. I'd never been so in love. I wasn't sure how to go about telling him I love him. When we went to bed I'd wait for him to fall asleep then whisper "I love you" before I rolled over. I did this for several nights and was trying to plan a big romantic gesture, but instead I accidentally just blurted it out. He immediately grinned and said "I love you too." After dating several more months he makes a confession to me. He has terrible insomnia and used to pretend to fall asleep then sneak out of bed and play video games once I was asleep. So he heard each one of those secret "I love yous." We just celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary.